Today we have a super easy recipe, great for the winter holidays. It's called Noodle Kugel, and Kugel in German means pudding. And right now what you see I'm doing is I'm kind of mushing around some softened butter. And now all I'm going to do is add some wonderful egg noodles, and I chose to use a thin egg noodle instead of the traditional thick egg noodle for my Kugel. And what I did was I just boiled these for about 4 minutes on high, rolling boil. So they're cooked, but they're not mushy. They're more like al dente. And these are your typical egg noodles. You find them in the cellophane packets in the store. And right now I'm just mixing in the butter so that they get nicely coated. Noodle kugels can be savory or sweet. The one I'm going to make today is a sweet dish. And the primary ingredients are cottage cheese, noodles, some kind of fruit, whether it's raisins or something else, and sour cream. But I'm going to use a combination of whipped cream cheese and non-fat Greek-style yogurt. And the Greek-style yogurt is a very thick, strained yogurt, which has the consistency of sour cream, and I've actually been using it quite a bit to substitute for sour cream, and it does a great job at that. Plus, the fact that it's non-fat is a really good addition. And I have a little bit of fat because we have the whipped cream cheese in here. Okay, that'll do that. So I'm just going to blend it up. And what I'm going to do is just blend every ingredient into the noodles one at a time to make sure it's nicely coated and that the warmth of the noodles can kind of liquefy the cheese a little bit and the yogurt. There's a little bit of whipped cream cheese in here that's solid, but I'll tell you that by the end of the mixing, it'll all be smooth. So we also have a pound of cottage cheese, and I'm using a lactate cottage cheese because it'll be easier to digest. And my original intention for buying this cottage cheese was not to use it in the recipe, but simply just to eat it. So it's ending up in the recipe simply because I saw it and I thought it would be a great thing to bring to my mom's for her Hanukkah party, which is tomorrow. So I'm making a nice fresh batch of noodle kugel for the Hanukkah party. I know I'll be frying up lots of latkes, potato latkes. It'll be great. Okay, so I've worked in the cottage cheese, and now I have 6 eggs that I have beaten already because it makes it a lot easier to mix it into these ingredients. So I'm going to mix this up, mix the eggs in, get them all mixed in here. And don't worry if they're not perfectly mixed. There's a few more ingredients that have to go in. Okay, I'm going to mix our spices in now. I'm going to use 3/4 of a teaspoon of nutmeg, which I think is a wonderful addition to any hot noodle dish, and a full teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Make sure these are well blended. And it's got a very custardy texture already, which is great because that's what we're going to be looking for. All right. And now I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of agave nectar. Typically people will add sugar, but I'm using agave nectar because that's the sweetener that I like the best. Gives everything a really nice flavor. I've seen other noodle kugel recipes where they use pineapple, fresh pineapple. It's really delightful. And I've seen potato kugel recipes that are really spicy and wonderful, and I'm definitely going to try one of those sometime soon. Right now I'm going to add about 1.5 cups of a mixture of dried fruits. What I did was I chopped up some dried apricots and dried pears. Dried pears are wonderful. They have such a lovely flavor and texture, and nobody expects them. You know, just dried pear. Wow, that's interesting. That's exotic and different. Although it's seasonal, this is late fall and pears are very much in season. So dried pears work well. And I just wanted to do something a little bit different than the typical raisin addition of dried fruit. And now I'm going to add a cup of walnut pieces. I don't usually put nuts in a kugel, but I saw it somewhere recently and I thought, you know, hey, let's give that a try and see what it's like, and if we like it an awful lot, we'll keep it, and if not, we'll let it go in the next time. Okay, so our mixture is well mixed, and now I'm going to pop it into my well-buttered pan. I'm using a glass baking dish for this recipe. I'll get some more here. Just simply because it's what I had on hand. You could use any kind of baking dish that you want. Sometimes I like to bake in Polish pottery because then you have a lovely presentation. And this isn't bad at all. I just like this baking dish because it has a cover, a nice plastic cover, so when you bring it somewhere it has its own cover. You don't have to worry about wrapping it in foil. Okay, so we're ready to go, and that took, what, all of 7 or 8 minutes? Maybe even less. I haven't looked at what the time is, but I'll find out, and in a moment I'm going to put this in our oven to bake for about 35 minutes at 350 degrees. Here we are after 35 minutes of baking, and you can see that there are some curds, and you can eliminate that by blending up your cottage cheese in the blender or using your stick blender prior to mixing it all together. So I'm not too worried about it because it's perfectly fine. This is a group of people who understand what Noodle Kugel is about. But if I were to make this again, I would definitely use the blender and make it smooth so that you don't have the little appearance of little white spots and stuff like that. Typically we like the top to be golden brown. Since I am bringing this to my mother's house tomorrow, what I'm going to do is pop it in the oven for about 10 minutes at 350, 375, and get the top to be completely golden brown, because right now we have a couple little spots, and they happen pretty early because we're using agave nectar in this recipe, and what agave nectar does is brown much earlier than sugar does. So I covered it with a piece of aluminum foil, and the rest of it didn't wind up with these little brown spots. But when I go and I heat it up at Mom's house, it'll have a nice golden brown. I'm going to tilt it to show you what the sides look like, and hopefully I won't send it flying out, but just wanted you to see what the sides look like a little bit. And you can see the nuts and the fruit, and on the bottom it's golden brown, and that's what we're looking for. So when people cut into this, it has a very solid texture. It'll be like a really thick noodle pudding, basically. And you can smell the cinnamon and nutmeg, and it's really delightful, and I encourage you to try it with your own family Hanukkah party.